Space Eagles who's ready to soar in 2018? I know Ray Dalio's in here. I see Ray Dalio. So even billionaire hedge fund guys are joining us. They want to be an eagle. Everyone doing okay? So I think we're going to have an abbreviated session. Not that much going on. Everyone has a Christmas hangover. So welcome to Faith, Ray. Hope you get some great ideas for your hedge fund. Here's one that I think could work out, looking at Euro Yen daily here. So I remember talking with Blake weeks ago, and I said I thought we might get up to the 2.618 level in Euro Yen for it to be a fake out. He was just looking for a little push above it. So people who thought we had a breakout, this is pretty lousy action. It doesn't look like a breakout to me. Looks like a stop hunt to me. And my bets would be that we're going for these stops eventually. So no follow through on a breakout so far in Euro Yen. Almost looks to me like the dollar could rally a bit here. Maybe last 4 days. I know you can't make a lot out of what's going on here in a day, but even the euro looks like it could roll over again. Tried to break out. It's not breaking out either. Euro pound starting to stall here. My targets were still higher, but maybe we pulled back again, even to the 88 level again before we launch, but looks like everything could pull back that I'm looking at this morning so far. My thoughts on S&P. I think that if I'm right about a dollar pop, I think the S&Ps are going to pull back with it. Maybe back to 640. Not crazy about this RSI reading, although it is diverging. But on the shorter time frames, we had some more glaring divergences at new highs. Up here, looks like we stayed under 70. So perhaps we get a pullback in across the board here. Even crude looks like it could be vulnerable for one. I took a look at that earlier today. I'm going to talk as long as I can because there is a Christmas miracle happening today here in Face. Steve doesn't know what to say. So when Steve doesn't have much to say about the markets, it's almost like a Christmas miracle. That Steve, when he's quiet and doesn't have comments on a million pairs. So that's just my bias, nothing I'd bet the farm on. But I'd say the thing that stands out to me the most is people that were waiting for a breakout in Euro Yen, one way or the other, got it last week. And I see absolutely no follow through. So you can look at it this way. The stops were here, right? Over all the previous tops. I'll show the daily again. So the stops were here. The high of the move, I believe, was this day back here at 34.50. We got to 34.88, and now we're trading where everyone got stopped out. That was short. So I believe Blake may be here. I'm not quite sure. Let me look at who's in the house with me. Maybe he's taking another day off. No, I think he's taking another day off. I talked to him. He got home safe and sound from New York. He sent me a picture of him and the family enjoying Christmas dinner. So I think he took another day. And this is going to be an abbreviated session. I'm having our guest, Dan Popescu, come a half an hour early. So we'll have the interview at the bottom of the hour. So guys, how was your weekend? Everyone have a good weekend? Good, Forex gal. Hi, Abdul. Zia, Kareem. Okay, Steve. Pound Aussie? Oh, you want me to answer the Pound Aussie question, or do you want to just repeat what you said all last week about Pound Aussie?
It's up to you.
All right, I'll take a look at it. I couldn't short it down here. Looks like it's pulling back to support. I can't short it here. I'd sell a rally. This looks like this might be it for a while. But I wouldn't do it in the hole. You know, we've come down 700 pips. So maybe a rally back to 76, 77 might be a short. Does that help you at all, Abdul? Are you short from the top? If you are, I'd be taking half off. Pretty deep sell off right here. Let me look at some shorter term stuff here. Yeah, it's beginning to diverge here. So, I mean, there could even be a counter trend trade back to 4.5 initially. I don't know if it's a pound that's going to lead it or something the yen is going to do, but yeah, there could be something counter trend. That's what I'd see. Okay, you're getting ready to go long. I can understand why. I'm probably looking for a retrace move from here to there. So let your trades breathe in this environment. I would use a lot less leverage. And I'm going to let Steve, you're very welcome, cover the MEX, USD MEX.
Yes, we do have some things to look at. I mean, the markets obviously have been extremely quiet during the holidays, with very, very, very few exceptions.
Bitcoin.
One of them is the cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin. Yeah. Yes.
So Steve, I was tweeting about. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, I'm reading about trades being canceled on certain exchanges during when gravity set in last week. And, you know, during that interview with Larry, I said, you know, you really have to be careful about trading or keeping your funds with an unregulated broker or an unregulated exchange. And I think we're going to see, even though Bitcoin's recovering, I'm going to be interested to see if people who want redemptions or their funds sent back to them or partial funds sent back to them, who could perform. It's easy to perform as a broker when it's a one-way trade. It's going to be interesting to see who really was prepared and can show the integrity that people could have access to their funds. Because I heard people were having trouble before the sell-off on a few crypto exchanges.
Absolutely.
So buyer beware. If you trade it, you know, use the wallet. I think maybe that gives you more security. I would not leave a lot of my net worth at an unregulated crypto broker.
Yeah, I
rest my case.
I would not leave much of my net worth in. I wouldn't put much of my net worth on cryptocurrencies either way, no matter where I decided to store them or you know, where I decided to trade them. There are serious issues with cryptocurrencies, in my opinion. I've stressed them out plenty of times.
Well, maybe they're good in your crypt.
Yeah.
After you die, you take your.
In my opinion,
in the afterlife, you'll need your currency in the crypt, which is cryptocurrency, for, you know, I don't know, buying a lobster dinner in heaven. What do you think?
Yeah,
I'm pretty hungry this morning. Go ahead, buddy.
Post-apocalyptic scenario, something tells me that the cryptocurrencies are the first ones that are going to go away. But anyhow, you know, some people try to persuade, you know, other people that things like, yeah, cryptocurrencies are volatile. But come on, I mean, yeah, sure, of course. What day was it? The 22nd of the month.
Yeah.
Ethereum was 37% down on the day. I mean, that's not volatile. You know, there are other definitions for volatile. Things dropping on a single day 25, 30, 35% is not something you call volatile. It's something you call, you know, nuts. And, you know, I really don't know who would put a decent amount of their net worth there. Also, the fact that we see such a big difference between prices in different exchanges tells me everything I need to know, because as you very well know, there are individuals and mostly funds that make a killing out of arbitraging. The fact that nobody's interested to arbitrage cryptocurrencies says everything you need to know, because in order for you to execute arbitrage, you need to be sure that you can enter and exit your positions concurrently and promptly, right? The fact that
between trades, there's $200 most of the time.
Oh no, there are occasions that you have $600 and $700 of.
Yeah, probably on the meltdown.
Yeah, and as you know, money always finds a way to take advantage of that if there is a safe way to take advantage of that. The fact that.
What do you think of this, Steve? The decline got going in earnest once they let the futures guys trade it. Once it was a futures contract, it wasn't that much longer before the dive took place. Coincidence? Maybe.
Yeah, okay, no, probably not. But yeah, obviously, you know, having now futures gives an option. Of course, that doesn't change anything that has to do with arbitraging, because yeah.
But it may have created another side of the market that wasn't there.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Dale. Tell me again.
It may have created another side of the market that wasn't there.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It makes it at least it makes it rather easy to sort it, right?
Yeah, easier. Not easy, but easier.
Easier, yes, easier, much easier actually in comparison to the options available by now. Anyhow, the point is that Ethereum has recovered the vast majority of its recent losses. It looks like being quite more well behaved. Bitcoin, not so much. And you know, it wouldn't surprise me if we end up having another leg lower. Especially Bitcoin has barely like recovered 50% of the drop lower, and you know, we might find some resistance here at the 61.8 and perhaps go for another move lower. It wouldn't surprise me eventually if we get a new high to all-time highs for people to once again try to prove to everybody that, you know, no matter how volatile it is, because, you know, the recent chit chat is like, no matter how volatile cryptocurrencies, you know, especially Bitcoin are, don't worry about it. You just need to hold and have faith, because it's going to keep hitting all-time highs, you know, no matter what. And as you understand, this is not going to be the case, even if we do hit new all-time highs at some point. I do think that at some point we're going to get a huge crash in our hands, much bigger than what we got a few days back, when we ended up from almost 20,000, at least in Bitstamp, that I'm monitoring. Bitcoin never hit 20,000. It stayed just below it, all the way down to 11,000 and change. So I'm expecting more than 40-45% of a correction at some point. I'm expecting actually a crash, but you know, you can never assume for sure in markets that trade in a mania phase like cryptos are doing at the moment. And the hype might not be over yet. Anyhow, Ethereum is holding much better, but you know, having talked a little bit about cryptocurrencies, let's go over and check, because there are not a lot of things that are moving in the FX commodity markets, etc. But there are a few.
What do you think about Euro Yen trying to stage that breakout over that multi-month range and not really being able to maintain the breakout? Would you attribute it to holiday markets or possibly a false breakout here?
I have no idea. I mean, I don't want to make assumptions about moves. First of all, there are a lot of people that might not have noticed, because, for example, TradingView did not register any price action for yesterday. But yesterday in the FX market, at some point, if you go to Bloomberg or whatever, you'll see that at some point we had a crash of more than 3% in the Euro USD.
Yeah,
Which was,
I saw someone tweeting about it.
yeah, it was a flash crash.
Where'd that happen? In Asia? Where were their quotes? Where was it being traded?
Definitely interbank. And a friend of mine sent it to me. I was out yesterday, and he sent it to me on a message, and he sent me a screenshot as well. I'm not exactly sure what time it was. I mean, I know when he sent it to me, but it doesn't surprise me at all. And I wouldn't be surprised if I saw a few more. If you remember, I had warned plenty of times about it, that especially between Christmas and New Year's, we might see that happening a couple of times again in some other currencies, because
and then it just came back and finished 15 pips lower after being down that much.
I mean, very, very liquid markets can produce stupid moves just because some decently big order came through, or it's also it's also an excellent period to actually push the market very cheaply. Because you might have some one-touch option.
People got stopped out at their brokers when that happened?
I'm not sure about it, actually. Let me check.
Very
Let me check my broker. I haven't checked my trading account at all, because, as you know, I've only kept 2 positions on, and none of them is euro related. So I didn't. There was no chance I got affected one way or another. So I had no reason. Let me see.
That blows the credibility of the business when stuff like that happens.
No, my broker never registered that move, actually. I'm just checking it out.
It should be like Bitcoin. They canceled any trades that happened.
Perhaps.
Bitcoin, canceling. All right.
Okay, so there are a few moves that stand out, though, and it's a good opportunity if we talk about them. By the way, having to do with Euro Yen, as you said, we are back again at the top of the range. I would not be paying so much attention to what happens here during the next 3.5 days that we've got left. I will be very interested, though, to see what's going to happen when the new week comes, because if we actually manage to push above it when liquidity comes back, I might be interested in this, because as I've said plenty of times, since we came in this prolonged consolidation from a strong move that happened, higher, for me, a break to the upside is probably what I would be expecting. So it's going to be it's going to be easier for me to not be reluctant to buy it in a break higher than it would be for me buying it, selling it in this case, if it actually broke lower. Okay, so but there is absolutely no chance in a million that I'm doing anything with it until next Tuesday. So if it wants to move away, fine, I lost the move, it's okay. I'm totally fine with that. If it wants to wait and then do it, yeah, sure. I'm going to seriously consider it. Now, one of the things I wanted to check out, and if you remember, I've been showing copper for some time, quite consistently. I mean, we're at least having a look at it a couple of times per week, is copper. Because copper, I said it plenty of days ago, that it found a low at a very nice confluence of supports. This was a very well-behaved corrective move lower in an expanding triangle, and just look what happened afterwards. I mean, this is the 13th day in the last 14 days that copper is moving higher. So it has already registered a new high. It has already proven that this was a corrective move, as we expected once again. And in all probability, any move lower to retest this area is going to be a very nice buying opportunity. Obviously, buying it after 12 consecutive days higher, or 13 out of the last 14 days higher, makes no sense, right? There's no question about it. But let's say that we start pulling back from here. Instead of hearing people talk about a false break higher, I think they would rather zoom out in the chart and realize that it doesn't matter if like for one day it broke just above the previous high, I would still not consider it a false break higher, because it's more than obvious that we are resuming the trend that has changed since October last year higher. Okay, so they should be looking for opportunities to buy it instead of looking for opportunities to sell it, at least until the market proves that that's not the right way to be looking at. Okay. So copper is one of the things that stand out. Now, another thing that stands out quite a lot is gold. It's not the fact that it has recovered like today after the weekend, and we have now recovered more than the 61.8%. That's not so much of a surprise, although I expected it to be rejected earlier and resume lower. The fact is, what makes it like more noticeable is the fact that treasuries are resuming their move lower, so yields are resuming their move higher. So seeing gold recover at the same time that yields are recovering. So let's have a look directly at the yields. Okay. Okay, there they are. So here are the yields. Ten-year yields. Okay. Okay, so there we have the yields. And you know, usually gold has a very good inverted correlation with yields. But as you can see, the past few days, gold has been recovering as yields have been recovering as well, and this is a very weird relationship. So I quite didn't expect that. And you know, I'm monitoring to see what's going to happen. Of course, we have no reason to turn bullish gold. First of all, because you know, these few days that this kind of correlation has decoupled, let's say, do not mean that, you know, correlation will change forever. It's just some kind of a divergence. But second of all, even if you zoom out and look at the chart, yes, sure, okay, you know, I'm definitely not turning bullish gold. On the other hand, having broken again, once again in the triangle, makes me more or less neutral. Although if I had to assume where the next leg is going to be, I would still probably put my money that it would be lower. But you know, I'm more or less neutral, as I said now, and I think that the choppy trading is resuming here, and that's why somebody should probably stay away and just monitor it until we get a much cleaner opportunity. Now, another thing I was monitoring, and we have you know, we have a friend asking, is the USD-MXN. The USD-MXN is probably the only pair that moved strongly the past couple of days pre Christmas holidays. And not coincidentally, I know that people are going to talk about fundamentals, but for me, it's very important that it broke above this confluence of resistances. Let's call it 1925, 1927. You know, we had there the 38.2 of the whole move lower that we got from the high to the lows during the summer. We also had there a horizontal support resistance area. You can see if I zoom out how many times it has proven to be very important for the market. So once we managed to break above it, the USD-MXN accelerated higher, and it actually stalled at the 50% fib. Obviously, having broken above here, and that's what we discussed when it was breaking out, it might pull back from here, but my bias is definitely going to remain bullish unless we break down below 1925 again. So I think that any pullback, as long as we hold this area, is going to be a buying opportunity, because the next area of resistance anyhow is some distance away. It's anywhere between 20 and 2030, I would say. We have there horizontal area of support resistance. We also have just above it the 61.8 of the move lower. So I think the right way to be looking here is higher. Also, if you want to look at the big picture from a technical perspective, let me draw it out. This is a cup and handle formation, right? We said that last week again. There it is. And that was the neckline of the cup and handle formation. So any way you look at it, I think that's a pretty important break, and people should not ignore it. Okay, so let's see what else we have. Okay, the USD-MXN was one of them. We wanted to talk about copper. We talked about cryptocurrencies. Yeah, let's have one more look at the treasuries, because I need to reiterate here that the treasuries are at a very critical juncture, right? I mean, there is only one area of support that has been left, which is this horizontal area of support above 123, until we break to multi-year lows, right? This is extremely important, and somebody should not ignore it, because we're talking about multi-year lows. We have to go back to 2011 to find lower prices in the 10-year treasuries if we actually break above that area. So I think that's going to be a very, very critical development for the market, because we all know how important and how correlated treasuries are to more than plenty of assets that we're monitoring. Anything that has to do with the dollar, on occasion, very correlated with risk as well. So this is something that we should probably at this juncture be the first thing on somebody's chart. I mean, monitoring what's happening with the treasuries. Let me have a look at a few questions. Okay, we have questions about the pound. Sure, let's have a look at it. First of all, cable. Nothing has changed about the cable. As long as it remains above 132.50, 133, this area, the interpretation of a corrective move lower, because as you see, this kind of move lower has all the characteristics of a corrective move. It has been slow. It has been extremely choppy. But despite spending several days like drifting lower, we haven't really depreciated that much. So unless we break below 132.50, I think that a break to the upside is a likelier scenario than for the pound to collapse lower once again. Okay, having to do now with the gappy, because we also have a question about the gappy, I think there's not much you can actually do here, because as you see, the gappy has been oscillating in a rather large range, and especially lately, it has a tendency of being rejected from the 61.8. I mean, we moved lower after a false break higher, although intraday, that was only intraday, because on a daily closing basis, we actually never closed to new highs. That's why I also don't like to act upon intraday moves until I see daily candles close. Then we got rejected from the 61.8 on the way lower. Then we recovered to the 61.8 and got rejected from it once again. Bottom line, I think you have no reason to want to have a position right here, right now in the gappy. For me, it looks like a coin toss. And
Steve,
honestly,
by the way, Dan is here with us whenever you want to wrap it.
Perfect. Yeah. Give me another 5 minutes and we can start. Yes.
Okay.
So I don't think the kind of trading you want to do is tossing coins. I mean, probably that's going to hurt you in the end and your trading account. Now, having to do with the pound Aussie and the pound Kiwi, very critical support, this trend line for the pound Aussie. We're currently at the 38.2 of the move, of the last move higher. we have already broken below the channel. But I would be very careful because anywhere between 172.50 and 173, we have the 38.2 in this trend line. I think you should monitor what happens from there first, you know, before taking any real decisions. Same here with the pound kiwi. It has been weaker than I expected, and I can actually see 5 waves lower. So I do believe that it has more downside, but I believe that we might need to recover somewhat first, and a good opportunity would be at a retest of this broken trend line, the blue one that you see here. Okay, so I don't think this is the area to be selling it, but I think that selling it on a rebound higher, anywhere as close as possible to the 194 area, might be a good opportunity, at least from a reward to risk perspective, for one more leg lower. Okay, so that's what I think about the pound Aussie and the pound here. Now, having to do with the SPX that I see two friends asking about the SPX, I have nothing to say here. I mean, we've spent like the last 4 trading days doing nothing. I don't expect much to happen today, but for sure, you have no reason to be bearish because we're still holding this steep ascending channel. We're also holding above the broken ascending wedge you can see here with red. So, so far so good. I think that for the time being, this looks simply like a consolidation in a bull trend that there's nobody that can doubt that we've been in a bull trend, right? Because Trump in a foreign policy speech last week said he was going after global international criminal and terrorist organizations as one of his priorities. He sold off a ton after that statement. Probably you're referring, Bill, to cryptos, right? Might be the case, yes. Which says a lot on the other hand. Okay, I think that's it. We covered any questions we had. Okay, now having to do with the webinars for the rest of the week, we will probably, as long as the moves are, you know, very quiet and the markets have been remain very quiet as they have during the past week, we will continue having webinars, but like, you know, 30 minutes per day. And then when we have an interview, because, you know, trying to fill in a whole webinar during completely quiet markets, I mean, in an environment that the markets are not moving, makes no sense for nobody. So we will be here, and if you see for some reason volatility picking up, we will also have absolutely no problem having a full-time webinar. Other than that, you know, we will be tweeting every day when we have a webinar, etc. But we will most probably keep them shorter until next Tuesday, of course, that things should go back to normal. Okay, somebody asks for USD NOK very, very fast. Nothing has changed here. And then I'm going to hand it over to Dale. The USD NOK remains in this ascending channel. Okay. On the other hand, it remains below the 840 zone. So I still hold my short position. I wouldn't even find it impossible to push once again higher to get people knocked out of the short positions, but I still like the USD NOK to the downside. On the other hand, we need to see a break below this ascending channel to confirm that we're actually breaking lower, okay? That's it. Okay, thank you, Dale. So enjoy the interview, mate.
Thank you, Steve.
And everybody, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, depends on your religion, etc. See you all tomorrow.
We know you Greeks. So do you pray to Zeus?
Personally, I'm not religious at all, Dale.
Okay.
I don't really believe in religion.
You don't go to the oracles that you guys used to have back then to say, will the NOK confirm my short next week? The Oracle of Delphi?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, Greeks are in a huge majority Orthodox Christians. Like
I know.
95%. Yeah.
I'm just playing around with you.
I know.
All right.
I know.
So, hey, Dan, I see you. I'm going to make you a panelist. So that'll give you audio. And look forward to talking to you. You're now a panelist. All you have to do is unmute and use the prompts. Hi, Dan. How are you?
Fine, fine. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, Dan. Hope you had a great holiday, and it's so nice to talk to you again. So I'm going to be showing your blog here so that people could see what you do. Show my screen. There we go. Okay. And, you know, I guess we should start here, Dan. I know you're a hard money advocate. You're an analyst of gold and silver. But as we wrap up this year, there's been a bit of a bump in gold. And
I send you a few charts if you want to put while we're talking, but I'm going to analyze them anyway in a more general way.
Okay. All right. So, you know, knowing you, I'm betting and I'm guessing that your stance and bullishness on precious metals has not changed, and that, you know, even when we go through consolidation periods or declines, that the gold is something that you believe everyone should have, and unlike cryptos, to have physical possession of at least some. So, am I reading you correctly?
Yes, my original becoming bullish on gold after more than 30 years not touching it. I used to trade it and invest in it right before the collapse of the gold exchange, dollar exchange standard in 1971. I started following it with my father in the 1960s when the first signals came out that there is a major crisis with the dollar exchange standard, and central bankers at that time, only Western Europe and the United States, created what's called the London Gold Pool, which was supposed to save this Bretton Woods gold US dollar exchange standard. It failed in 1968 when France, General de Gaulle, president of France of that time, just said, you know, this artificial support, this cartel doesn't work. I'm getting out. So the London Gold Pool collapsed, which was an official one because it was only central banks of Western Europe and United States. And soon after, so that happened in 1968. In 69, in a desperate move, they created a currency, an international currency called SDR, special drawing rights. And not many people know that the original creation of that SDR was calculated in grams of gold, about 89 grams of gold. So approximately 1 gram. So it's exactly the ideal standard that I see, which is 1 gram of gold being the standard. And but the United States didn't want it. They didn't like gold. And
I remember, I'm not that young anymore either, but I remember it was illegal for U.S. citizens to own gold, I believe, until 1975, 1976. It was legal again, and at that time, gold opened at about $200 an ounce, and then promptly dropped to 100. My first short trade was in gold.
Yeah, it became legal. Actually, first what happened is in '71, Richard Nixon ended the gold exchange, and in 1973, it was completely eliminated even from the SDR. The SDR became a basket of 18 currencies, and at the same time, individuals in the United States were allowed to to buy gold slowly. Keep in mind that in 1973 there was no internet, so there was only physical stores to buy, and in United States and Canada there was no place where you could buy physical gold except from a jeweler. I used to commute. I was in school in Switzerland, and in Switzerland I could go to the corner store where they exchange currencies, and I was able to buy gold coins, the British sovereign, the French Napoleon, the Swiss Vernet. It was so easy to do it. You just went to the foreign exchange desk in front of the train station, and you could buy gold coins, which when I came to Canada and I lived in Montreal.
What was the price per coin back then, Dan, out of curiosity? And you were doing it in where, Switzerland?
Yeah, it was in Switzerland, so it's just before it started, so it was around 35.
Okay, near what used to be the official gold rate.
Exactly, because the collapse of the system happened in 1971. On the free market, it was already starting to be above that official rate. But it was, let's say, around 40 on the market, maybe 45 for a small individual who wanted to buy a coin. So it was very, so it was very easy to do it in Europe. In Canada, I was in Montreal, even 75, 76, internet did not exist at that time. And there was only, I think it was Guaranteed Trust in Montreal, somewhere in Old City, which offered the possibility to buy physical gold. And it was a line, people waiting in line to buy it. So the facility of buying gold during the crisis, when it went up to 850, it was completely different than today, where individuals in the United States can have access.
Right. So you're talking about the bull move into 1979, early 1980s. It peaked on the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, and that was also during the Hunt's silver squeeze that took silver to 50 until they changed the rules on the Hunt brothers to liquidation only. So great history lesson. What I'm interested in, and I'm sure your readers and our viewers are, what's on the radar screen for 2018 for gold? What do you think are going to be the major events, whether they be geo or economic, that's going to shape the destiny of the yellow metal and silver as well, Dan? What are you looking at? What's on your radar?
Yeah, I mentioned that because the collapse of the gold exchange standard did not solve the problem. It was supposed to be temporary. So by 1980, Mr. Volcker gave the impression that the debt issue of the United States is being cleaned up. And we switched, and thanks to the strategy of Henry Kissinger with the petrodollar, gold did not come back. It was the dollar that became very popular, and it became the global de facto, if you want, standard, but a very unstable standard. And since the crisis in 2008, we see that the problem has not been solved. And I call it, I'm a physicist by education, so I'm going to use an analogy from physics, which is unstable equilibrium. Unstable equilibrium, if you take a ruler and you hold it by the bottom, it doesn't want to stay there. It wants to go down completely. That would be a stable equilibrium. And the international monetary system right now, since 2008, it's been in a very unstable equilibrium, ready to collapse. And I'm not one of those who sees the end of the world, the death of the dollar. I just see a resetting of the international monetary system on a different basis that it was de facto since the 1980s, which is the US dollar. So that is my thesis, that gold is coming back, and we've seen it since 2008 by central bankers starting to buy back again, mostly what used to be called emerging markets. They call it now developing markets, and especially Russia and China,
Yes.
who have been buying extensively. And my decision in 2004 and my analysis and my research when I came back into gold massively was 5,000 within about 15 years. So 2004 plus 15, that's about 2019. And it comes about very close. I cannot give a precise date, but it seems to are coming very close to a reset of the international monetary system. Would it be, there are two possibilities. One, it's going to happen through a collapse, a major crisis that collapses completely the system, or it could be done through the international monetary system in a collaborative way, the G20, where the countries sit together and they make a decision to readjust, to redo a new system, which could include some gold into it, or just the present SDR as it was updated in last September, October. So it's hard to say what comes out in political, geopolitical negotiations. We have the election of Donald Trump that has changed the consensus at the international level, and you've seen it, that almost on every issue, United States finds itself isolated. Donald Trump doesn't seem to like to build coalitions. Ronald Reagan was very good in attracting and building coalitions and also show leadership. He did it with Margaret Thatcher and forced many others to follow United States. What's happening with Donald Trump is that Donald Trump is kind of my way or no way. And he's creating a chaos environment in geopolitics, and he's not somebody who favors the SDR. Before the election, everybody was thinking that there will be a
weaker dollar, though, and he got it.
Exactly, he favored a weaker dollar. He's having it. I'm not sure how much it is because he really wants it. It's much more because fiat currencies are an image of the country, of the economy of the country and the geopolitical system. Last year, you had chaos in Europe, and that had an impact on the currency. Not all the economies in Europe were doing bad. Germany was doing well, and think about Europe in the same way as you would think about United States. You have California doing badly, you have maybe Chicago doing well, Texas doing well. So in Europe, you had Germany doing very well, Holland doing very well, Great Britain not that bad, France was not doing very well, but not that bad either. Italy, Greece.
And then you have Italy.
Exactly. Italy, Greece, and Spain and Portugal doing disastrous, they were in a disaster situation. But for the currency, it could have been a stabilizing factor, but it wasn't. The image of the European Union and the euro was Europe is collapsing, it goes to hell, it will disappear from the map, there will be no more, there's going to be a hole full of water in next year. That
okay, Jen, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up to you and get your thoughts on it. A lot of people look at crypto as being the new gold, with anonymity, with you know, the fact that it's finite. I'm wondering what your thoughts are, and that it is even competition for people that normally would have gone into gold or that are going into crypto. What are your thoughts?
I've been very negative on cryptocurrencies. On the technical point, I'm a physicist. I've been programming computers since 1965.
So you don't think the blockchain technology is here to stay, regardless of the different issues of crypto, like Bitcoin, Ethereum? They may come and go, but you don't even believe in the blockchain technology?
No, I didn't say that. On the contrary, I do believe, and let's make a split between the two: the technology aspect of it and the currency aspect of it. Now, for the technology aspect of it, if you want me to speak on the technology aspect, as I was explaining, I've been following software advances since the creation of the computer. The first programming system was the Fortran and COBOL, and I've been programming since then and worked in a computer company. I built computers myself personally in the 1970s, 1980s and 90s. I built my first 3 PCs were built by myself, and I had to program in basic ASCII language a computer for my diploma to get my physics degree.
Wow.
Blockchain is a great advancement. I wouldn't call it a revolution. I think only salesmen call it a revolution. It is a great advancement in software finance technology and in transfer of information. I worked in a bank in the back office, processing transactions internationally, and it was a mess. And I said it's impossible with the new technologies that they have not updated the system already. I think that blockchain brings an incredible advance. I would call it an upgrade, not a revolution, but a fantastic upgrade like Windows was to MS-DOS. Now, those who are old enough to remember MS-DOS, it was a mess to use it for the consumer. For us professionals and passionate software programmers, it was fun to play with MS-DOS because we looked intelligent while the general public was looking stupid, and we loved that. But Windows simplified the system in such a way in which that the general public was as good as us, the software programmers, in using a computer. Blockchain has that possibility in back office transactions of improving. It's not perfect, and we see now, if you take away the hype, I was recently at 2 conferences, one with Thomson Reuters, who works into transmitting information and selling information, and I was speaking with software specialists in the cryptocurrency, crypto technology, and they all agreed, take away the hype. There is a lot of garbage going around by Bitcoin sellers to hype it and to pretend that it's better than God and that it's the greatest creation since the beginning of the universe. Take that away, and crypto technology is great. It has some flaws when it comes to currencies. It was badly designed to be a medium of exchange like gold, but it isn't, because it's just a mathematical creation of the human mind. And if you know what mathematics, many people think that mathematics is a science. Mathematics is not science. Physics, chemistry, biology is science. Mathematics is an instrument that works very well for science, but not always. There are many holes in mathematics that physicists like me, engineers, doctors cannot use. For example, the most famous ones and the simplest one that I can give you, that mathematics is not perfect as Bitcoiners pretend, is give me the solution to the square root of -1. There is no answer. Mathematicians, after 4,000 years, because mathematics is 4,000 years old, have not been able to find a solution to that mathematical formula. So what did they do? They say, okay, we'll leave it open for the moment. We'll say that the answer is an imaginary number. So you just dream it. It can be 1, it can be -1, it can be 1,000, it can be -5,000. Mathematicians, their answer is there is no answer to that mathematical problem. The second one is try to divide 1 by 0. And the answer the mathematicians have been giving you is undefined. You cannot give that answer. And if you ask you, do that test yourself, take a simple calculator or your computer and ask your calculator to do those two operations, square root of -1 and 1 divided by 0. The genius computer is going to tell you error because it doesn't know the answer. Okay?
So that's fascinating. Yeah, I didn't know that.
So, yeah, so crypto is made out of mathematics, and cryptocurrency people, the Bitcoin community, they are saying because it's mathematics, it's precise. How can it be more precise when mathematics itself it's not precise? They also said that you cannot inflate Bitcoin because the number, the prime numbers are limited. That again, anything that a human creates, he can destroy or he can modify. So since it's a mathematical creation, a human creation, it can be expanded to infinity. And we've seen recently that they've started printing, and now there is such a chaos in the cryptocurrencies. They're even for me, it's hard to know which one it is, what formula they use, how does it work. And if you ask the crypto sellers,
yeah. So if it's hard for a guy with your background to wrap your head around it, especially because of the quantity of offerings, just think what it's like for the general public.
Exactly, and keep in mind that humans like simplicity. If you are a specialist in a field like I am, I understand how you build a plane. I fly them and I used to build them. But you, for example, do you care how does a plane works? You don't care. You just get into the plane and you hope the plane is in time and gets to destination. How it works and all the machinery, you just don't give a damn. And Bitcoin right now, my observation of Bitcoin, and I've been writing it on Twitter regularly, is that it shows it doesn't work. Complaints from people who use it are by the thousand on Twitter. I made a payment and it hasn't been processed yet. I made a payment and it was supposed, the argument of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and a few days ago, Dan, you could have gone to buy something, and then by the time you got to the register, your Bitcoin was worth half as much in 5 minutes.
Exactly, and that it's funny because they call it gold 2.0. But what was the problem with fiat money, with the dollar, with the euro? It was that because of inflation, because of printing of dollars, the value of your dollar, you're old enough, just like me. I remember when I used to, my flying lesson in 1971 was $14. The same flying lesson today on the same plane, a Cessna 150, that's 50 years later, it's about $150. Nothing has changed. It's the same plane. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they say that an ounce of gold would always buy you a nice suit.
Exactly.
So, right. So let me ask you this, Dan, because and really, you know, this is a great interview. I'm gonna invite you back to when we have, you know, post-holiday crowds, because it's turned into something even better than I thought it would be. But let me ask you this, and let's wrap it on this. That you have listed potential economic reasons for an SDR or something to replace either in a crisis, or because America, under the leadership of our new president, is America first, which means America alone. And if the Chinese, Russians, and the IMF get together, they could come up with the SDR and kind of take away the privilege of the dollar being the reserve currency. You know, China starting their own oil exchange to be paid in yuan and gold. What geopolitically, with everything that's happening on the global stage with Russia, with North Korea, with the decertification of the Iran deal, do you most worry about going into next year?
The issue I worry the most from a geopolitical point of view, actually I should put two of them. One is the transition in Saudi Arabia not going well. It has been my black swan for 2 years that something is not going right in Saudi Arabia. If the transition doesn't go well, and you have a collapse of the monarchy in Saudi Arabia, it will trigger a collapse of the petrodollar that was created in the 1970s by Secretary of State Kissinger. And that would have
be a big one. So a de-link maybe the real from the dollar, if that happens.
Exactly, and keep in mind that United States doesn't depend anymore on Saudi oil. The biggest client today for Saudi Arabia is no more United States, is China.
Everyone's a customer. Yeah.
So under pressure from China, Saudi Arabia might be forced, even if they don't want, to break the petrodollar. And the second one that people don't think is that the character and the style of Donald Trump, he's not an idiot. He reads and he knows, and he knows that United States doesn't depend on Saudi oil as they did, and the Middle East oil as they did in the 70s. So he might even himself, Donald Trump, might say, the hell with the Saudis. He didn't like the Saudis before the election anyway. So he might say, you know, go wherever you want, because I don't need your oil anyway. So it could be the Chinese forcing the Saudis, or it could be United States pushing the Saudis into a crisis, and that will collapse the link, and that could have ripple effects.
Don't you think that would be kind of a strange one, since that was his first trip, official trip as a president to Saudi Arabia? And Saudi Arabia and Israel are allies now. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That that what you see lining up is U.S., Saudi, Israeli access to possibly take on Iran after this proxy war in Yemen.
Yes, but it is a
possibly. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is a very fragile, it's a fragile alliance between United States, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. Keep in mind that the popular support for such an alliance in Saudi Arabia is still very weak. And that's why I'm saying that there is a danger of some kind of a civil war, some kind of a palace coup in Saudi Arabia that could change, like it changed in 1979 with Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran, something similar.
Okay. All right, Dan, go ahead.
That will have an impact on gold and the U.S. dollar, and that is and there is the second issue that I'm following. It didn't happen this year, but it could happen next year. It's coming very close, what I was mentioning earlier, and that is a treasury war, a currency war between China and Russia alliance against United States dollar. There is a trade war that's going to amplify next year, and Putin and Xi are not very happy with the sanctions that are being placed on their transactions. So they are working very hard.
They already have an alternative SWIFT system.
Exactly.
Okay, all right, okay. So Dan, fascinating conversation with you. I'm so glad I reached back to you for you to come on. Let's get together mid-year or in the spring and see what's going on. And I wish you and your family and your associates and anyone who reads your blog, I recommend people that are hearing us live and see the video to follow Dan, and you could do that at Popescu. That's your Twitter handle, right?
Yeah, that's where I put very timely information and graphs about the subjects that I usually cover, which is precious metals, and the subjects related to precious metals, which are geopolitics, macroeconomics.
Well, I wish you a great 2018 in all ways, Dan, not just financially, but, you know, life is more than finances. So hope you have a great 2018, and I want to thank you for taking time during a kind of a holiday season to edify our community. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dan.
Me too, and Happy New Year to your followers and to everybody.
Thank you, Dan. Everyone, that's Dan Popescu. You could follow him on Twitter at Popescu. And that's it for us today, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Maybe there'll be a little bit more action. If not, we'll abbreviate the sessions once again. Don't just count your pips, count your blessings. See everybody tomorrow. Since today is Tuesday, we'll see you for Turnaround Wednesday. Take care, my Face Eagles. You're very welcome, Bill. Thanks again, Dan.
Pleasure.